Imagine arriving at a town where more than 100 people once lived. Families, children, entire households, and finding absolutely nothing. No bodies, no signs of a fight. No evidence of where they went. Just one mysterious word carved into a wooden post. Croatoan. More than 400 years later, nobody knows for certain what happened to the lost colony of Roanoke. Did the settlers join a native tribe? Were they killed? Did they starve, relocate, or simply vanish into history? Welcome to the American Archive, where we explore the forgotten stories, hidden mysteries, and remarkable events that shaped America's past. Today's story takes us back to the late 1500s, long before the United States existed, to a remote island on the edge of the known world. This is the story of the lost colony of Roanoke. The dream of a new world, the year was 1587. England was eager to establish its presence in the New World. Spain had already built a vast empire across the Americas, growing wealthy from gold, silver, and trade. English leaders feared being left behind. One of the strongest supporters of English colonization was Sir Walter Raleigh. He received permission from Queen Elizabeth to establish settlements in North America. Previous attempts had failed, but Raleigh remained determined. A new expedition was organized. This time, the settlers were not just soldiers and adventurers. Entire families would make the journey. Men, women, and children boarded. Ships bound for a distant land they hoped would become their new home. After a long and dangerous voyage across the Atlantic Ocean, more than 100 colonists arrived at Roanoke Island, located along the coast of present-day North Carolina. Leading them was Governor John White. The settlers carried with them dreams of prosperity and opportunity. They imagined fertile farmland, thriving communities, and a future for their children. But the wilderness that greeted them was harsh and unforgiving. Trouble begins almost immediately. The colonists faced serious challenges. Food was scarce. The environment was unfamiliar. Relations with nearby indigenous tribes were complicated due to conflicts caused by earlier English expeditions. The colony struggled to become self-sufficient. As supplies dwindled, it became clear that additional resources were desperately needed. The settlers turned to Governor John White. They urged him to return to England and bring back food, tools, and reinforcements. White was reluctant. His daughter Eleanor Dare lived in the colony. So did his newborn granddaughter Virginia Dare. Virginia was especially significant because she was the first English child born in North America. Leaving meant abandoning his family to an uncertain future, yet the survival of the colony depended on it. Finally, White agreed. In late 1587, he boarded a ship and sailed back to England, expecting to return quickly. He could not have imagined that it would be 3 years before he saw Roanoke again. The delay that changed history. Back in England, events beyond White's control created disaster. A major war was unfolding between England and Spain. The Spanish Armada, one of the largest naval forces ever assembled, threatened to invade England. Queen Elizabeth ordered many ships to remain available for national defense. As a result, White struggled to find transportation back to Roanoke. Month after month passed, then another year, and another. While White desperately searched for a way to return, the colonists remained isolated thousands of miles away. No one knew what was happening to them. Had they found food? Had they established alliances with local tribes? Were they still alive? White spent years trying to answer these questions. Finally, in 1590, he secured passage across the Atlantic. At last he was going back. The return to Roanoke. The voyage was difficult. Storms battered the ships. Strong winds delayed progress. But eventually Roanoke Island appeared on the horizon. For John White, the moment was emotional. He expected challenges. Perhaps some settlers had died. Perhaps the colony had struggled. But he hoped to see survivors. Most importantly, he hoped to see his daughter and granddaughter again. As White stepped ashore, an eerie silence greeted him. No voices, no laughter, no signs of life. The settlement was deserted. Every house stood empty. The streets were silent. The colonists were gone, all of them. More than 100 people had vanished. The only clue. White and his men began searching. What they found only deepened the mystery. There were no bodies, no skeletons, no graves, no signs of a massacre, no evidence of a battle. The settlement had not been burned. Buildings appeared to have been carefully dismantled. It looked less like a disaster and more like a planned departure. Then someone noticed an inscription. Carved into a wooden post was a single word: Croatoan. Nearby, the letters CRO were carved into a tree. To outsiders, the message might have seemed meaningless, but White immediately understood its significance. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island and the indigenous people who lived there. Before leaving for England, White and the colonists had agreed on a system. If they relocated, they would leave a message indicating their destination. If they left under danger or attack, they would carve a cross alongside the message. No cross was found. This suggested they had moved willingly. At least that was White's interpretation. A search cut short. White desperately wanted to investigate Croatoan Island. Perhaps the settlers had moved there. Perhaps his family was alive. Perhaps answers were only a few miles away. But nature intervened. Powerful storms struck the region. The ship captains feared losing their vessels. Despite White's pleas, they refused to continue searching. Reluctantly, the expedition abandoned the effort and sailed back to England. It was the last time John White would ever search for his family. History contains many lost settlements. What makes this case unique is the complete absence of certainty. There are no eyewitness accounts, no surviving journals, no official records explaining what happened. Only a single word, one message carved into wood, a clue that raises more questions than answers. Every generation revisits the mystery and proposes new solutions. Yet the final chapter remains unwritten. Conclusion. More than 4 centuries ago, over 100 settlers crossed an ocean seeking a new beginning. They built homes. They started families. They dreamed of creating a future in an unfamiliar land. Then they vanished. No bodies were found. No battle was recorded. No definitive explanation emerged. Only the haunting word, Croatoan. Was it a destination? A warning? A message of hope? Or the final trace left behind by a colony lost to history? Perhaps the truth lies buried beneath the soil of North Carolina, waiting for future archaeologists to uncover it. Until then, the Lost Colony of Roanoke remains one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. Channel outro. If you enjoyed this journey into one of history's greatest mysteries, be sure to subscribe to The American Archive for more stories from America's hidden past, forgotten legends, unsolved mysteries, and remarkable historical events. Leave a comment below with your own theory. What do you think happened to the settlers of Roanoke? And as always, thank you for exploring history with The American Archive.